And so this final panel is leading positive disruption in the water industry, which will bring it together for the final session for today. And to guide us there is Joe Lim. I'll just a brief introduction on Joe. Joe is the CEO of VicWater and a member of the IWN executive group. Joe joined VicWater in March 2019 as the 2IC with overall responsibility for the planning, implementation, control and reporting of the industry-supported special projects. Joe started her career in the federal public service before holding senior executive roles in IT. I note that it doesn't say risk, so Victor, that's good. So our IT sector and management consultancy. Joe, welcome to the stage and thank you for guiding us through this last part. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. So I wasn't expecting a full introduction like that, but thank you. That was very kind. And can I just take this opportunity to acknowledge and congratulate you on emceeing us through what has been a fabulous day so far. I promise we won't let you down. And I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Jason Cotton and Elisa Burke, who I know from first-hand observation have been working so hard to bring this day together. So please, can we just acknowledge that? Done. And as Jason said, he's only been here for 12 weeks, week 12, and I can tell you he's hit the ground running, and I think we're all enjoying the fruits of your labour so far, so thank you. Can I invite the panellists to come up to the stage, please? And I'm sorry, I did not prepare full bio readouts for you, so I'm just going to tell everybody who you are and what your role is. I'm sure most people in the room will already know. So joining us on the stage, we have Andrew Jeffers, who is the Managing Director of Wannon Water and also, as you know, the Chair of the IWN Executive Group, and he's also on the board of VicWater. Pat McCafferty is the Managing Director of Yarra Valley Water. Jen Rebeiro is Chief Transformation Officer at Greater Western Water, and she is the Deputy Chair of the IWN Exec Group. And on the end there, we have Joe Murdoch, who is the Managing Director of North East Water and is also a member of the IWN Exec Group. So we're going to talk about leading positive disruption and leading innovation, I think, too, more broadly in the industry. But given that we have been focusing on positive disruption today, I want to ask each of you if you can give us an example of where you have seen or experienced or maybe even provoked positive disruption yourself in your organisation, not necessarily your current one, could be a previous one. And I'm going to start at the far end with you, Joe.
Thanks so much, Joe. I love this topic. I actually probably think I'm a positive disruptor in so many different ways. But when I guess we've talked a lot about technology today. We've talked a lot about innovation. But I really love there's a couple of quotes I've loved today. One has been from Tane that says, we've got to change the story of the human race. And I actually think we've got to continue. We've started that path. Everybody in this room is changing the story of the water sector, of all the positive and incredible things that the water sector can actually bring to our society, which is obviously the first thing is high quality and safe drinking water and wastewater services. But there are so many other things that we can do if we are innovative and we think outside the square, that we're adaptive, agile and diverse. And in fact, we're leading, as an example, we're leading a transformational program at North East Water where we are focusing on being more adaptive and more diverse. That was my very first slide when we talked about the transformation program, because we have big challenges ahead of us, but I like to see them as opportunities, not just challenges. And if we can help our organisation do things differently, then we're going to be able to adapt and be able to make the most of those. And I'll just give you one small example. I'm going to pass the baton. We are undertaking master planning for right across our region. It's called our Regional Master Planning Program. Now, we're not doing it in the same way that we might have done it 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that is our engineers looking at a single township and doing a master plan for that system and then a system over here and a system over here. We're taking a whole of systems approach, and we're not just doing an engineering solution with a solution with other solutions to reach our emissions, net zero carbon by 2035 over here on us quite separately, or an IWM solution over here separately, or a project around traditional owner cultural obligations and understanding and learning and sharing knowledge, everything, all those elements are actually within the master planning, and we're looking at it from every single township across our region. And that is actually a really transformational approach for us. It's a different way of thinking because we would have just designed it like we would have designed it 5 years ago. That's our example at North East Water, and that's just one way that we're looking to transform and do things better, I think.
Thanks, Jo. Jen.
I think disruption's a mindset, especially around positive disruption, and it's really born out of the mindset of curiosity. So if you're curious and you want to continue to ask the question why, you will continue to ask the question why and probably be disruptive. I'm going to take you back to one of my very early jobs many moons ago, and this is and it's not a technology solution, although it did involve data. But I worked for an airline, and my role was to improve the turnaround time of an aircraft, and so that meant having to have a really good understanding of what it took to actually clean, get bags on and off an aircraft, and empty the toilet. So I think my career started in sewerage very much wasted a long time ago. And one of the things that the airline industry did as a matter of course was look at aircraft arrival and departure as their key criteria to determine what needs to occur and how to turn around an aircraft. So they would send a team to every aircraft, regardless of how many passengers and regardless of how many bags there were on that aircraft. And so one of the things that I encouraged the team to think about was, hold on a second, does it matter? Why are we sending a crew of 6 people to unload no bags when you travel from Melbourne to Sydney? Because everybody on that plane is a suit in those days, not carrying anything other than their briefcase. So I think it's just about asking the questions why. And I don't know if you've all heard of the 5 whys, but, you know, if you don't, go and find out about it. But if you do, keep using it, because it encourages curiosity, and disruption will become a main thing in your organisation.
Thanks, Jen. Andrew?
Yeah, thank you. It's a bit intimidating sitting up here answering these questions when there's so many smart people in the room.
I know.
Anyway, I'll do my best. When this question came across, we did get some forethinking because, you know, we're not that bright on our feet. Or perhaps I should just speak for myself there. So thanks, Jo. The disruption I thought about was a sector disruption, and it's the water sector disruption. And IWN is a water sector disruption in a sense, and around collaboration really has increased collaboration significantly. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the disruption the Minister created back in 2016 about gender balance on boards in the water corporations across the state, and more broadly inclusion, and more broadly the value of diversity in decision-making and teams. And for me, that was a bit of I was just doing my usual stuff, you know, plugging away on the keyboard like I do all day. And, you know, it made me think about things a little bit. And I look back to the sector then, to the sector now, and it's different. It is significantly different. And the values around, I was speaking to Jason this before, in fact, he mentioned it to me, I hadn't thought it this way, around empathy has come into the water sector in a way that it wasn't there before. It's not that it wasn't there, but it's different. And that comes through in 2 ways. One is we really value customers and think about what's going to be valuable to them as a sector. And secondly, the people that work in the water sector. We really value the people that work in the sector, and it's a bit of a buzz phrase, but put those people at the centre. So really people-focused processes. And so to me, that's the real significant disruption I've seen in the water sector over the last, my 30 years in it, has been really quite significant. And I think it's partially seen today as well. It's not the sole reason why there's so many wonderful people in this room, but it certainly helps that level of inclusion and collaboration that as a result. So that's what occurred to me. And I was basically a passenger on that, you know, learning and getting in there and supporting.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. Pat, to finish us off.
Thanks, Joe. And Andrew, that's a great example, which I'll probably build on, because I think disruption comes in many forms. And hello, everyone over there. I'm behind here. If I was a little bit taller, you could see me, but I'm sure you can see me on the screen. So the example I wanted to talk... That's okay, Joe.
No, I won't do that. I won't.
The example
That would be disruptive. So
the example I wanted to talk about is to do with some work that occurred a few years ago within Yarra Valley Water. We were doing some engagement with a welfare agency out in Melbourne's outer north in Whittlesea, an organisation called Whittlesea Community Connections. And it was about how can we help and how can you support the vulnerable and those sorts of things. And they'd mentioned to us that a lot of the families out in that area were doing it hard and found it very difficult. I think something like 10 to 15% of the families couldn't put fresh food on the table, couldn't afford it. At the same time, we were talking to Melbourne Polytechnic, who were receiving recycled water from Yarra Valley Water for their horticulture and agricultural training facilities, but the lease was running out. The third aspect of the story is that at our Aurora sewage treatment plant, we also have a recycled water treatment plant, and we have a food waste to energy facility there as well. And on top of that, we've got a whole lot of land around those facilities, because as water utilities with our treatment plants, we have to have buffer, keep us away from the community and those sorts of things. So what the team did was they started to see broader possibilities by making connections around how we could actually have a multifaceted approach to this to address multiple challenges and opportunities. So now what we've got, we call it the Wallert Community Farm, and it's being built as we speak. So essentially Melbourne Polytechnic is relocating to our land at the treatment plant. They're going to take recycled water and renewable energy from us and demonstrate the circular economy in horticulture and agricultural training for their students. Whittlesea Community Connections is going to have its volunteers relocate to our site to actually work on the land and produce food for the vulnerable. It's being guided by the Narrett Rangers from Wurundjeri, who actually, so it's got cultural heritage at its heart. They're advising on land development practices and so forth. In fact, we had a cultural burning about 3 weeks ago, which was fascinating to see how the Wurundjeri actually did that to restore the land, getting it ready for plantings. And then we're going to also produce plants and trees for our own projects and that of local councils. So you have this very different perspective of the assets that we've got as a consequence. I mean, that land in the past would have been given to a local farmer for a peppercorn rent to put cows on it or whatever, because they're cheap lawnmowers. But now it's actually being used for so much more productive purposes for the local community and society. So that's a typical example, but it goes back to sort of, people seeing that they can make a positive difference and knowing what the industry is actually up for now, how it's changed.
yeah, and connecting those dots, which is what many of your stories are talking about, is bringing different things together to create something new. So thank you for sharing those. And yes, I did give them a heads up that I would ask that question, but I'm impressed that you all came up with very different examples, which I just think speaks to our industry and just the wealth of opportunity that we have to be creating this positive disruption. So let's move on now more specifically to your role as leader of your organisation, leader in the industry. We heard in the earlier panel session a bit about some practical ideas around creating an innovation hub and what that might need to be successful. But I want to talk about innovation more broadly as a culture of innovation, and your role as leaders in helping to foster that, embed that, encourage it. So I'll start with you, Jen. Your thoughts on the question of a culture of innovation and your role as a leader.
Thanks, Jo. I have a really love-hate relationship with the word innovation, and that's really comes from I believe that innovation happens everywhere, and so the smallest idea can lead into the most significant disruption or piece of change that occurs. And I also have have seen people say that innovation happens over there by those people. And that really disempowers everybody from being innovative. And I think every single person has a little bit of innovation and some bright ideas in them. In terms of leadership and in terms of really encouraging innovation, I think it's important to be able to say yes, and how can we help you explore that idea? It's really easy in our organisations when we're trying to prioritise where to spend our money and how to spend our money. And so it becomes really important to think about, giving people the opportunity to at least explore whether that idea could come to life and grow wings and spread, or fail, because it's okay to fail as well. So it's okay to go, actually, it doesn't really work. And the other thing that is really important from a leadership perspective, and Brock, you said it, which is all about sponsorship. So finding the person in the organisation, it might be the person right next to you, might be your manager or your leader, it might be somebody outside the organisation in a group just like IWN, who can actually help to foster that idea and help it grow and bring it to life. It doesn't have to happen by you on your own. It's about taking that idea and working with others, collaborating with others to bring it to life and to really make it sing. And sometimes, it's just about the joy of coming up with an idea actually is really about the joy of working with others to come up with other ideas. And I don't know if you've ever sat in a brainstorming session where one person said, let's think about growing green apples, and then another person says, but what if we wanted to make them red? And just continue to build on those ideas. It's really rewarding if you're probably an extroverted type to enjoy that, but it's, watching ideas bloom is really enjoyable and can give a lot of great satisfaction.
Thanks, Jen. Jo, how about you?
Thanks, Jo. Gosh, there's so much we can do as leaders. First of all, we can support IWN for a start, because this is the perfect forum to foster ideas and innovation and everything. So that's a little plug for IWN, but it's so important. Secondly, I guess as leaders, I kind of see my role as understanding the landscape. We are in a totally different place than we were 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So what are the challenges and the opportunities ahead of us that we need to strive for? And what are the skills and capabilities that we need to get there? And we should all be asking that. So if we've got a leadership program that we've been running for the last 10 years, that kind of needs to be turned on its head, because the skills and capabilities our leaders had 10 years ago are different to today. And we do need to, I rattled off words before, but we need to be more agile and adaptive. We need to not see innovation as the remit of our innovation team or our digital team. Every single person must be in the organisation. When we recruit, we need those mindsets in the business. So that should form part of our position descriptions. But that all starts at the top from our board. So we, as managing director, it's my role to work with our board to help them together transform, so that from the leadership perspective, that can then filter that same expectation to executive, to managers, to coordinators, and right throughout the whole organisation, to every single person in our water corporate and then across the sector, which is why it's important to be part of these forums.
Thanks, Jo. Pat, I'll ask you.
Thanks, Jo. I think for me, it's in the realm of strategy and culture. So strategy in the sense of being clear on what's the organisation's purpose, what's its core purpose, why does it exist, and having a shared understanding and alignment around that in the organisation. And then for us, it's about being clear on what success might look like in the matters of fundamental importance to the organisation. So for our long-term strategy, it might be around customers, it might be around the environment. Having conversations around, in the long term, what does success look like in the environment? We might talk about greenhouse gas emissions, and maybe the target could be net zero in 2025. And having that as the clear definition of what we want to achieve, but not the how. So in the organisation, if we're clear about what success looks like, if people are buying into that, they understand the vibe and the intent of the place, then standing back and getting out of the way is the way we feel is the best pathway to innovation and creativity. It does require a different sort of leadership, people prepared to coach, to remove barriers to success, to be open to the new ideas. And it's also around the culture of the place as well. So, building that culture that reinforces calculated risk-taking inside of the strategy. So, socialising the hell out of the strategy is really important for us. So everyone actually knows what we're up for, our aspirations, and they can start to draw a line of sight between what they do every day and that long-term goal. And it also gets down to how leaders behave when things don't go wrong. So the ultimate test of a culture is when something goes wrong, and how the leadership of the organisation responds to that, how the board, Victor, might respond to that, because it's very easy in certain circumstances to shut down that energy and that innovative approach with the wrong response. So the other thing around generating a framework or an environment that encourages innovation is to have a strategy that actually is multifaceted in the sense of wanting to achieve it all at once. So an example might be we want to keep pressure off costs. We want to have flat bills or declining bills, ideally, but we want to improve service and environmental outcomes. So how do you do that? So we've often called that the genius of the and, holding both of those things together. That creates a natural tension, if you like, where people, we want people to exist in that tension, holding those things, to think about different ways and unique ways to achieve the objective.
Thanks, Pat. That leaves you, Andrew.
I'm guessing it's me. And
Yes.
good about going last is I was actually going to say all those things,
Yes.
like exactly the same. I'm just interested in your career about you being growing apples, looking after aeroplanes, very wide and diverse, green and red ones. I'll keep it fairly brief, but I mean, people have written theses and lots of work on how to create the right environment for innovation to thrive. So there's lots of different aspects. We've heard different aspects even on this panel, which is terrific. So I'm just going to touch on one of those, which really is about just creating an organisation of thinkers, or creating the environment where people are thinking within the organisation, rather than, or the opposite is, everything goes up for a decision at this thing called this magic executive team that are full of these all-wise, all-knowing people that can process vast amounts of information and give really wise information back. And the reality is that's not true. And so, well, I'm sorry, speaking
back the curtain there, Andrew.
Speaking for myself, that's not true. I've got this saying, I'll get in trouble for it, but I'll do it again today. In our organisation, if you want a bad decision, send it to the executive team, right? But that's, and I say it tongue-in-cheek, and I make sure people realise it's tongue-in-cheek. But it's another way of saying the best decisions are made by those who've got the information. Drive it down within the organisation. And my favourite day in a water corporation is when there's something really smart, clever, great outcome has happened, and I've known absolutely nothing about it. I've read it on Watershed or something like that, or even in the newspaper. Go, well, that's just great. That means the thing's working, right? So how do you do that? I guess some of the things Pat said. I guess giving intent, not answers. So as an organisational leader, just getting clear on where we're trying to head to, and make sure those goalposts are clear to allow people to use the information that's around them, the contacts, whatever it is, to make great decisions and rise to those challenges. It's what jumped to my mind.
Thank you. Last week I had the pleasure of being at a dinner. Victor was there too, where we heard from esteemed industry elder Cheryl Battergol. And Cheryl was asked something about, I can't remember how it came up, but she was asked something about innovation. And so I'll share with you the two things that she said that resonated with me. And one was, she said, let the ideas flow. And the other thing she said was, unearth your superstars. And I think all four of you have really said that in your own ways around ideas and people. Like that's really what it's all about, isn't it? Okay, let's move on. Let's talk now about IWN. And Joe, you've already kind of led us there because you told us how important it is for us all to be involved with IWN. And so I'm going to ask you to elaborate a little bit more on that. What is the benefit that IWN brings to your organisation and your people?
Well, quite simply, it's an excitement for thinking outside the square, and it's a platform for or something to bring us together to talk about innovation. As simple as it doesn't matter whether it's in a big room full of 50 people coming to hear about what IWN's innovation is, and I've been in this situation where we've been in the depot with, I think Dean, you came to visit us, and we sat in the depot with about eight staff, operations staff, who are all just saying, yeah, we could do this and we could do that, and thank you. And so it's just, for me, it's just really this, it's a conversation starter, it's a hub of information and knowledge, and it's a great way to foster champions who people that have an interest in innovation to actually help us spread the great word about innovation. So I absolutely love, real convert to IWN. So thanks, Jane.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you talk about a particular project that North East Water is involved with IWN?
I can.
Yeah.
So we've got lots of projects, but we're actually partnering with IWN and Gippsland Water on a biochar trial ourselves out at Wangaratta. So we have partnered with Wangaratta City Council and, as I mentioned, Gippsland Water and IWN to take organic waste from Wangaratta Council, mix it with biosolids and PFAS and other contaminants to actually test the different feedstocks and test the different volumes and other parameters, because we're really keen to have a regional solution in the North East. At the moment, all our councils are sending all their organic food waste north. Terrible environmental footprint. Don't tweet that, anybody, but we can see it'll be fantastic to have a regional solution, and it may not happen in 1 year's time or 2 year or 5 year, but if we think ahead, for 5 to 10 years time, we are setting the foundations for that trial. And this all happened because IWN took a chance on this trial with us. And it's blossomed from there. We had the minister launch it. It's just sort of gone from strength to strength. So just want to say thank you, IWN.
That's great.
And thank you, IWN, and thank you for the incredible skilled and capable people that are involved in this trial. I should say it's way beyond me. We've got the likes of our environment team, John Day, Simon Robertson, Aaron here. So it's just a fabulous trial. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Who will I go to next? Pat, I'm going to go to you this time. IWN, benefits to Yarra Valley Water.
Thanks, Joe. Well, I think the value proposition is around risk mitigation and, lifting all the boats. So the idea that, water utilities generally around the world are reasonably conservative. And if someone comes to provide a technology to us, the first thing we say is, where else is it being used and how effective was it? And show me. So it's a great platform for spreading our risk and trying different things and then sharing the insights from that. So I think that's a really important aspect of what IWN brings. It also just brings a community of networks and relationships that people have. It doesn't have to be around in the realm of actual IWN projects. It's actually just being able to pick up the phone, knowing your colleagues somewhere else in the sector is grappling with the same issue and just having a chat about it. So, those sort of shared insights as well. Yeah, and I think, for me, one of the biggest things that's the kernel of the idea of zero emissions water, which came through IWN, that is huge when you think about it, for the whole sector in Victoria being able to come together and create renewable energy with that shared scale of investment in solar. That's incredible. And for Yarra Valley Water, when I said, we're targeting net zero in 2025, that's going to be 25% of how we're going to get there. So it's really impactful. So yeah.
Yeah, Zoo definitely has been a major success story coming out of IWN, and I'll just add on that so within VicWater now we're looking at the Zoo model that has inspired us to do work that we've been doing for 12 months now on looking at how water corporations can come together to collectively access the carbon offsets market, because we all know that we're not going to reach our net zero targets through emissions reduction alone. That's not possible. There is going to be an element of carbon offsets involved there too. So can we use the Zoo model to bring water corporations together to be a single player within that market? So that's something that was inspired by Zoo, which came out of IWN. So the benefits continue to flow outside of just the people involved in IWN. Who have I not heard from yet? Jen, you're looking at me. Yes, Jen.
The benefits of IWN, they're so great. They're just so great. At the local, site level, we've done trials. I feel like, Dean, Jason, Alessia, we're like in every trial, GWW. We sort of go, oh, we'll do that. We'll play in that one. But we do get, tangible financial benefits. I mean, we had an old trial now going back many years, which is now fully ensconced in the organisation using Vapor as a technology, which saved us 15,000 man hours a year looking at pipeline footage, CCTV footage. So there are there are absolutely tangible benefits. But I actually think the biggest benefit from IWN is the opportunity for people to connect, to collaborate, and also the opportunity for people to lead. Things like the program managers and the deputy program managers give people the opportunity to learn leadership skills if they haven't got them, or to actually practice and use them outside of an area where they may not necessarily, having to use influence to get ideas across. And just that opportunity to participate in the Champions program. I don't know if we've got a number of champions here in the room. Is just brilliant. So it's about bringing everybody together, exploring ideas, doing the trials, but also taking something back personally if you're a part of the Champions program or if you're taking one of those leadership roles as well.
Thanks, Jen. And final word to you, Andrew.
Yeah, I was going to say
all of that.
All those
yes,
things,
all
yeah.
those things. Yes.
IWN 10 plus years, right? So it goes back some time. We're not exactly sure the start date, but I've been there all those years, and so is Stuart Craven sitting over the back there. When we started IWN, the question that got asked most is what does it stand for, right? It took 2 years for people even to recite what IWN stood for. It was a hard-fought journey in those new years and getting water corps put trials forward. All the success that we're talking about today was quite hard-fought. But the thing that changed success of IWN, in my view, it's not a fact, just a story, is the Champions program. And what that was about, that was actually giving back. It was about people are putting time forward. What's in it for them? How can they get some benefits? And Cameron Geddes is here, and he's run that program all that time. And for the people so whilst all these things are true, the Champions program has given back to our organisation through leadership and development. And all those champions that participated in there have then moved on to other things. Their minds expanded, their confidence is increased, and that's been a real significant benefit to our organisation. So Tanya's our champion at the moment, so and she's in that same boat as well. So I'll focus on the Champions program.
Great, thank you. So that is the end of my prepared questions that they had on notice. So now it's time to turn it over to you, questions without notice. Here's your opportunity. You've got 4 great leaders in the industry, and we have,
and we like really tough.
Yes.
And this is where you get a chance to ask questions you're not allowed to ask anywhere else. And Pat will be really happy to.
Thank you, James Gong from Deakin University. My question probably slightly different from the traditional questions you have received. That is more about collaboration between the research providers like universities and the water industry. As we know, innovation is something we have to do, right? It's not just the universities, but the whole sector, and everything's changing so fast. In your point of view, or based on your experience, what would be your advice in terms of enhancing the collaboration to achieve better outcomes?
Good question. Who would like to take that first? Joe, you look like you're ready to go.
I am. I love. Sorry.
No, go.
Collaboration should really be the foundation of everything we do. We can't do this alone. We've got significant challenges ahead of us, but actually they're made easier when you actually partner with universities, TAFEs, CSIRO, research bodies, our large trade waste customers. So if I think about, and I'm looking at, I know, James, you've been involved in, and so as well, looking at VicWater there, the great work that you've done with your the five councils and in terms of partnering the local government around the biochar opportunities, the waste to energy opportunities. So, partnering with key stakeholders, councils, local community groups, business groups, those sorts of things. That's what we should be out. That really, we need to change. I think what was that movie? Don't Look Up. Was that the name of that?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a, we have to look up. We have to look up and out, because that's the only way we're going to, I think I wrote it down. I used my hand. James, it's in my very exciting hand. Optimists need to take the next shift. And that's us, optimists and collaborators and innovators, and that's us, I think. So,
could I just add? I heard this great quote the other day: "Together we are greater than we are alone." And it's a really simple one. And I think collaboration is pretty much that. Together we can do amazing things than if we tried to sit by ourselves and keep reinventing the same wheel in silos.
Yeah, so VicWater's tagline is "Better Together," but maybe we should change it. What is it? Together we are better than alone. It's too long, but anyway. I get it.
Short, punchy tagline.
Yeah, that's right. Better together to it.
Can I just add one little
yes.
thing that's to build on those responses is collaboration takes time. It really does. And in our organisation, something I notice is we do something really good and then move on to the next thing, don't stop. A lot of time pressures all over the place. Collaborating in IWN and involving different parties, can slow up the overall progress. And often heard this in the early days, if we just get on and do it ourselves, we'll get there quicker. So there's something about recognising that collaboration involving partners will take longer, but you get a far improved result overall. So there's something just to think in that space, I think, as well.
Pat, did you want to add anything, or just agree with everything?
I agree with everything.
Yes.
No, but I will say specifically about your question on the R&D and the connection to the academia and the universities. I think really understanding what the challenges are of our sector. If I was in your shoes, what problems are we leaning into the next 10, 20, 30 years? And then applying the brightest and the best minds that you have available to you to help work with us and collaborate with us on the solutions.
Thank you. I think we had another question.
Thomas Kewen from Melbourne Water. Joe, I'll let you work out who to direct this to. There's a saying that sometimes you need to spend $1 to save $1. So in the context of today, what does that mean to you and or your workplaces? And if I could go just sort of one step further, what could or should we perhaps be doing differently?
The thorny question of funding and finances. Who wants to tackle that? Pat.
I'm happy to kick it off.
Yeah.
I think that, and it's a little bit in terms of what Andrew was referring to before with the change that started to occur in our sector back in 14, 15, that permission to play a bigger game and that whole of society sort of value generation that government and ministers has seen that this industry is capable of leading. And I think that's opened up the door for us to really think broadly about how we make a positive difference and create greater value, calculating, including externalities in our analysis, those sorts of things. So I think now, I mean, there's so many ways you can do it, but there are there are a lot of examples in this industry now where we're not taking the narrow view of just the dollar to get the return very quickly. We're taking a much longer term view, and we're looking at the broader benefits. So I'll give you an example. We've done some analysis on every dollar that we spend in supporting the vulnerable in our community gets a $3 return on social return on investment. Now, it may not be exactly dollar for dollar in terms of the returns to Yarra Valley Water, but from a big picture point of view, there's great value in that. And if we take that back to our communities through our engagement processes, we always get the support for spending that extra bit of money. So I think that's an example.
Thanks.
Can I just add one little thing, which I mentioned actually at the very outset of today, which is IWN has a 5-fold return on investment. That's forgetting about the other externalities and those sorts of things. That's just direct financial benefits done on a very conservative basis as well, and forgetting about those leadership and all those other bits and pieces. So, and members staying in IWN, I think they see that value, which is terrific, and certainly the executive group, which Janet or us three are on, very much focused on making sure we deliver that value. So hopefully then water corporations, when it comes to, you know, expenditure in that space, continue to support, you know, IWN going forward.
Thanks.
I guess I'd probably just like to add that I think we do need to invest in transformation and innovation because the compounding impact of not doing that leaves us in a big hole, basically, where we then have to spend a lot of money very quickly to catch up. But I think but in that funding and revenue space, we need to be innovative as well. We just can't go cap in hand and say we need more money. We need to put our prices up. We need to, there's a whole range of things. We need to be innovative in looking at where funding streams are. You know, largely the water sector, and that's it. You know, we need to get better at perhaps, and many water corps are very good at this, but, you know, identifying what the opportunities are, finding the skills to help us develop the pathways into grants and other funding, developing bids that are suitable to be, you know, to go up to arena or whatever else. That's on one hand. On the other hand, we need to look at the products and services that we provide. So obviously we provide water and wastewater services, but what else can we provide that helps to reduce our emissions, reduce our energy costs, keep costs down, that we can then reinvest that money into you know, improving our infrastructure or being more innovative. That, you know, it's almost like a circular economy for innovation, and I think that, you know, invest and it brings back and helps reduce prices.
Jen?
I would just say really simply, to take that transformation view, we've got to work on what's important, not what's urgent. So important should hopefully take that longer term, that holistic, connecting the dots view and saying this is how we're going to deliver on strategic outcomes. Urgent is it's right in front of my face, right here, right now. I've got to do it because if I don't, something's going to go wrong. And so really starting to think about, is this work that I need to do, this dollar that I'm going to spend, is it going to return me value, not necessarily financial, but, you know, collective value over the longer term horizon?
Yeah, and it's a tricky balance to try and achieve in this sector, isn't it, between the important and the urgent, because you can be focused on the important things and then floods come along and they are urgent, and suddenly you're spending a lot of money on flood response and recovery that you otherwise might have spent on important innovation. But any other questions from the floor? I think we've got one at the back there, and then we'll well
That's
done.
good. I was worried what sort of question you'd have, Victor. It'd be a curly one.
All right, thanks. I just wanted to give props to Pat on that circular economy project that you did with Polytechnics. That sounds absolutely amazing. I think we should replicate that everywhere. But my first thing is a comment, and then the question is, with all the disruption happening, particularly with AI, I see ourselves in a few years needing prompt engineers, people that can really speak to these large language models and get the best outputs. I could even see us having AI colleagues sitting in on our team meetings, taking the minutes, giving us real-time insights, and and keeping us on track when often meetings can go out of track really easy. But what I actually wanted to ask was around data. A lot of all this disruption is it's enabled by the data that we have and the data that we can provide. Traditionally, the water industry is very risk averse, and we hold on to a lot of the data that I don't believe we should be. How can we approach changing that? I know we have sensitive data with customer information, but how on a high level can we disrupt the industry as far as how we handle data? Because I think that we have a really good tool with what Delp's produced in the last couple of years, the DTV platform, and there's a large number of stakeholders with data sets on there that can provide us a lot of value, but likewise we can provide a lot of value to other stakeholders by liberating our data on a platform like datavic.gov.au. And I just wanted to have some opinions on how we could actually make that happen.
I'll start. The Victorian government's position is to make data available. So de-identified or not risky data. So, not customer data, not probably not ASCADA data. It's probably not going to be one that we would release. But the general premise is to make data available if we can for sharing and for the aggregated use. So I think the answer is yes, we should be. It's just about we as organisations have to get our data stratification right first. I think we still have a long way to go in some of our organisations around what data is of PII data, or what data is able to be freely shared. So I think there's a little bit of work within the organisation first to understand our data models and what we can share before we can share it. But the Victorian government position is to share.
So just so that we can get people's questions in, I'll leave that with you, Jen. And there was a question here.
Good. So I'm just from Taswater. We're sort of starting a new focus, I guess, on technical innovations. And I'm in a team of boffins where we've sort of been given the task to prioritise, this trial, things like that. I asked my boffins to, fill in a list, and we've got more than 30. So I guess my question is, how do you decide what to work on? Would you use like standard sort of project prioritizations, or does that not fit for these kinds of innovative things? And also, I guess, let's use this platform. If anyone has done this before, can you come and help me, please?
Well, we pinched one of our managers. There's a general manager now down there, so he might be able to give you some insights. But it is about prioritisation. But I think it's also, there's a foundation in terms of what we're here to do, provide safe, affordable, reliable water and sanitation services. That's the wings in the aeroplane, right? So we've got to achieve that first. So whatever's in service of that. And then building on that, our obligations, whatever they might be to our shareholder, around climate mitigation strategies, all those sorts of things. And then the third element is what we promised our customers, which is fundamental. So here at least we've got a very good, I think, regulatory regime and independent pricing regime, which puts the community and customers at the centre of all of our planning. So what are the commitments, what are the promises, what are the investments, what are the outcomes that we said we would deliver for those people that they can take to the bank, and that's the priority setting framework for everything that we do as a starting point.
Victor, you had a question. Wait for the mic. It's coming.
He doesn't need a mic.
When do you think of the great world leaders, a Mandela or the like, Bishop Tutu, right? They laugh every second sentence. And one of the features of Australian leadership is self-effacing humour, laughter. I see a lot of Pat and I see a lot of Andrew, and they're always smiling, they're always laughing. And my impression of you, Joe, and the other panellists is the same. So what's the secret, right, in being a serious leader? Pat, I see a lot of you speak at global conferences, you're in demand. Joe, you're the same. What's the secret to maintaining that good humour, the laughter, the happiness in the workplace that each of the five of you do as a leader? If you could each just share with a sentence or two on that secret of good humour, laughter, and smiling and greeting every colleague?
I'm happy to kick off. I think fundamentally for me, it's I take the work seriously, but not myself.
Mm.
Good question. Hadn't thought about it, but I don't know. We at work a lot, right? So I just don't see why we shouldn't enjoy it, right? And I think that's just fundamentally wired into me. We should enjoy it. I also recognise that in the privileged role that I have, what I do matters. People watch and see. So I'm conscious of always the image I project, I guess, back into the organisation. But that's not to say I'm pretending to be happy or smiling. That's but I just
You fake it very well.
Yeah, I fake it.
Jen?
I would just say the same. You know, we come to work, we spend a lot of time at work. You want to have fun, but you also want to get to know the people that you're working with, and that means sharing a bit of yourself and getting a little bit back. So, and usually when you do that, you start to have a laugh about life.
Oh, Victor, I don't know. I'm going to laugh right now. No, look, you just be yourself. I think when you're at work, and sometimes I am smiling and happy and laughing, and other times I'm projecting probably not enough smiles. But sometimes it is hard. Sometimes you've had a big day the day before, and you've had a night out and night off working for not night out, but a work meeting.
You're hungover and you're
or you're sitting up, late doing things, and then you've got back-to-back meetings the next day, and it's some really important meetings. Sometimes you just have to lift up and say, what is the image that you're projecting there? And if I'm looking really down and flat, everybody else is going to be looking down and flat. So sometimes you have to really lift yourself up. So.
Look, I think the same. I think it is being conscious of the impact that you have on other people. And, for me, I'm still the same person that I was before I was a leader. And so just trying to be my authentic self, I guess, is what it comes down to. Thank you for the question. I think we're at the end, but I just have a really quick one that I want to ask our panellists. We've spoken a lot today about ChatGPT. So my question is, ChatGPT, yes or no?
Yes.
I think so.
Yes and no.
Yes. Thanks very much. Can you please thank our panellists? Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Joe, and thank you to our panellists. What a tremendous way to end what has been an incredible day. I realise I'm standing between you and drinks, and I'm standing between Elisa and packing up. So, which is more important. We've got to be out of here pretty quickly. I just want to thank everyone who has been involved in today. There are so many people, it's too many to mention by name, but all of the volunteers from IWN, all of the program managers, the program leaders and the champions who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes today to put it all together. But I do want to reiterate, I want to call out a couple of people. Firstly, Elisa Berg, what a superstar. I know that I've said she's a superstar, but you just don't understand the amount of work that she has put in for this. Everything from the graphic design of all of the slides and the materials that you see to, making sure that everyone had a name tag, to going and picking stuff up, to, what is it, the barge you call your car, isn't it, to running around and, down the loading dock and everything else. Just been an absolute champion. So thank you so much. To Sam Fisher, who has also been in the background organising things like dinners and making sure everyone's got accommodation and somewhere to sleep tonight. If you don't have anywhere to sleep tonight, please talk to Sam. To Michael Thomas, what a super effort today, hey? MC, just tremendous. Yeah, and yeah, mate, you're signing up again next year, I think. Tremendous job. And to Blair, who's also been working behind the scenes and helping to make sure that all of the structures worked at the conference. So to Blair, thank you so much. Well done. I'd like to thank the vendors today. So it was Amazon Web Services, IOTA, and Detection Services, and of course Deakin University. So thank you for putting on a tremendous and interesting display, and I hope you got a lot out of that. So yeah, thank them. And to Deakin University, what a sensational venue that you provided for us today. We are truly grateful for this magnificent venue, and yeah, next year, hey, we'll have a chat. So yeah, thanks so much. So please give Deakin a big round of applause. It has been an incredible day. I've got so much out of it, but I do want to leave you with one quote. We talked about the importance of collaboration. And this one, I think, is a Chinese proverb, but I could be wrong. So please Google it and correct me later. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Go well today, and thank you very much for your attendance. Cheers.